Okay. So, Linux Mint is my favorite operating system. It's one of the distros that made me stop distro hopping. It's a really good distribution, it's solid, it's based on Ubuntu, if you use the Ubuntu version, and people that know me already know that this is kind of my jam. I am the Linux Mint guy, or at least I try to be. I answer questions when I can. When I recommend a distro, it's usually one I recommend unless something precarious has happened, or if you genuinely need a newer experience than what Mint brings to the table. It genuinely is just all around a really good distribution, and it works for a lot of people. There are some things that it doesn't work for, and that's probably a tale for another day, but long story short, it'll pretty much do whatever you ask it to do, and it doesn't complain while doing it. For the most part. Asterisk. Every distro has its own pain points. But largely, Mint has served me very well. It has migrated from my laptops to my desktops to all these other pieces of hardware I've got laying around. If it can run it, it probably is in my house, so for better or for worse. And I enjoy it. It gets out of my way, it gets the job done, and it lets me do my work, and that's really the important part. So with that, as you can see in the background here, Mint just had another release, and with that, I want to talk about it because it's my favorite distribution, and it is one of the few you will consistently see on the channel, mostly for that reason. If I'm running it, it's what I'm interested in, and it's what I'm going to share with you guys. So with that, let's roll on into it.
This is fine.
So this is Linux Mint. Right now, you'll notice that they are now promoting the Zia X, I'm going to call it Zia. I think that's how you do it. Version of their operating system. And I'll link in the description. There's a release on their blog. There's a new features page. And there's release notes that come with this stuff. So all of that you can dig into on your own time. For me personally, it's going to boil down to my notes here. I tried to take some quick notes, and then we'll hop into the virtual machine a bit later. So while you're perusing all of that, you can kind of leave the video up. I'll give you a quick brief of what those links will take you to. Because it's based upon Ubuntu, it's based on Ubuntu 24.04, much like Mint 22. You got support till 2029. That means if you just never want to upgrade your machine to a newer Mint, you don't have to until 2029, which is a heck of a, long time where I could just run a production system and never worry about it. Now, I tend to upgrade within a month or two of the new release. I usually let everything else in my fleet take the brunt first, and then I'll upgrade these other systems, but that being said, not everybody works that way. I think probably a safer bet would be to run 6 months behind, but typically the dot releases are a lot safer than the main big point releases, so take that for what you will. Obviously, before any major upgrade, take a time shift, back your system up, back your important files up, make sure your backups are working, so if something does go wrong, you've got a way to roll back. The big key one here is there's a lot behind the scenes going on. So as an example, I don't remember if I covered it in the Mint blogs or not. You could probably check out my videos on those. The whole Synaptic package manager and apt URL situation is that there's a lot of things in Debian and Ubuntu that are really old tool chains. And those need to get modern so they can survive. And nobody had yet stepped up to replace those things. From what I understand, there's some work that Canonical was doing, there's some work that Mint was doing, but nobody was actually just making a way forward. We were just fixing what was already broken, trying to duct tape this thing along.
Geordie, divert all power to the engines. Take it from life support if you have to. Give me everything you've got.
Captain and AppKit are supposed to fix that, and they get their own video you can go watch on the blogs. Essentially, they are remodernizing the... I have milk.
What? What the fuck?
literally got milk. So it's literally replacing Synaptic Package Manager and Dejebi entirely and working with apt.url. Essentially, the ways you GUI install apps are going to be a lot better to maintain in the future and are definitely going to be easier to maintain. There's other things like the software manager and the update manager I didn't know weren't multi-threaded. Now they are. They'll actually perform a bit faster, which is pretty nice. I've actually noticed it on this when I ran this thing on the beta. It ran noticeably quicker doing just updates and stuff, and that is fantastic, guys. We might try installing a random deb package on my VM. We'll see. Power profiles, that's a big one. I no longer am going to need to sit here and install packages to make my battery not chew through itself. Power Profiles daemon is actually what a lot of other distros ship with, and so that's not anything new. It's just Mint's finally shipping it, and I appreciate it. The normal Cinnamon 6.4 stuff, again, you can read the stuff in the description for that. A lot of dialogues have changed. The actual Mint GDK theme has actually changed. A lot of people haven't noticed. If you pull them side by side, it's slightly darker on the taskbar area of the actual Cinnamon theme. It's very minute, and there's other minute theme changes and whatnot that are going on. But for the most part, it's mostly the same. You'll mostly notice it on a distro shipping Cinnamon that doesn't come with the Mint Y theme. Wayland is supposed to work better. We'll find out in a few. And there's some other minor stuff behind the hood that, again, you guys can read notes and stuff. So, while there isn't a lot of visual things to talk about and show, there's definitely some stuff that is happening in the back end that we're all going to appreciate going forward. So, I guess with that, we're going to go play in a virtual machine now and see what my thoughts are. So what I have here is a virtual machine with 8 gigabytes of RAM and 4 CPUs attached to it, so it's about a 4-core system with 8 gigs of RAM. That's a pretty reasonable system. I know this is a completely vanilla install. I have not done anything to it. I have not touched it. This is how Linux Mint is when you take it out of the box. So what I will do for display's sake is I will drop the resolution so everything's a little bit bigger, and you can see here's one of our new dialog boxes, and you can see the panel is slightly darker than we're used to. You can kind of see the contrast here, and the menus are a little rounder. Like if you pop up here, you can just barely see it. I'm not really with this dark background, but if I go in and change the background, let's get something bright. I pull that up. You can see we've now got rounded corners. There's no gap here, but if I open up the themes, we go to advanced and I switch it to Cinnamon, you can see I've got a bit of a hovered gap. There's rounded corners, and it's the same with every single pop-up menu. Versus if I go back to the simple view, Mint Y, dark, I don't have that. I'm going to presume eventually the Linux Mint theme will have said things, but for now they don't. So for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. This is a fairly reasonably configured system. So for starters, I don't have, this virtual machine doesn't detect my battery. However, if I open up the power menu, I now have power profiles based upon Power Profiles daemon. And you can tell because you can open up a terminal here, and I'll make it pretty big. Power Profiles CTL help. Essentially, you can Power Profiles CTL set balanced and it'll set it to balanced. Anyway, I don't remember the commands for it, but you set it to power saver, it'll power save, it's balanced. If you have the option to do high performance, my main Mint system does. If I just pop myself out of QEMU here, I do have the performance power profile. I would normally just leave it in the balanced set. For the most part, that is a majority. Oh, we can go into system settings and go to night light. And you can actually set a night light feature that cuts out blue light. In a virtual machine, I'll leave it off because it doesn't really work correctly. But in actual hardware, it definitely does. Now, this is nice because before I was having to install XSCT or SCT to replace Redshift, because Redshift worked if you manually set it the way it was telling your position and location to set the color temperature. Got deprecated, so it didn't work anymore. Kind of a problem if you want a functional system. But for the most part, like I said, the update manager is now multi-threaded. I can't really demonstrate this. This is a brand new install, so it's probably not going to find anything, but if it does, I would be impressed. Oh wow, it actually did find some. It looks like it's got stuff for apt-get. Fantastic. And you can see our lovely user profile authentication, that it does block out the entire screen, but it requires your authentication. You put it in, and then these buttons are completely separate, which is nice. Enter my password. That is definitely not 123. You should have a stronger password. I'm me, and therefore on a virtual machine I can do whatever I want. So while we're waiting on things to download, you can tell if I open up in here and scroll down, it has already downloaded everything very quickly. We're just waiting on Firefox, and that's now done, and now we're downloading a bunch of other things. And so it being multi-threaded means it can process more things at once, which is fantastic. Definitely worth it in that regard. So while we're waiting on this, I'm going to go ahead and open up Firefox. And we're going to go get something people would install. We're going to let this finish. You still can't install software while the things are installing. And you can see it's working through these updates a lot faster. Typically, it didn't take me a long time to update, but it is one of those things. If you're used to see your system working really quickly and it's not multi-threaded and you become multi-threaded, you will feel the seat of the pants, I assure you. It is noticeably quicker. So, Synaptic, no longer installed. Not a thing anymore. You can still install it. It does still exist. If I open up the terminal and say apt search Synaptic, the Synaptic Package Manager is right here. You can still install it. I wouldn't bother at this point unless you just really like it. So, with that, we now also do not have JDEBI. Again, it's also available in the repos. You don't have to worry. If you just really like it and you want to use it, you can. I can assure you, you will not notice the difference. The software manager handles all your software. I just recommend people go in and toggle that toggle switch to enable unverified Flatpaks. Go do your research. Make sure the Flatpak you're installing is somewhat legitimate, even if it is a community effort, and you'll be okay. This deb package, if I double click on it, it's now going to open the package, and this is a different screen. I don't remember seeing this with the other one. And now you'll see something that you would see before. This is the new Captain. Now I love how it'll show you, hey, this is everything that I'm going to do. This is everything in this file. See all the information. You could also just nod. It'll just say, hey, I'm this package. And so now we just hit install, put in our super secret password. That's definitely not 123. And install. And you see how fast that installed? Normally installing manual debs on Mint would take a bit longer. than that, probably about twice as long. So while it's only a few seconds faster in the overall scheme of things, sometimes 10 or 15 seconds faster, because they have these new tools, this is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Now it says it's installed. I can just close the tool. And then now I have Google Chrome installed on my system. Just like that. So, pretty straightforward. Now what I'd like to do is get a little bit off script here, and we're going to restart the virtual machine. That's because if you've been in Xorg and you log out and you go to Wayland, some of the Xorg stuff is still running. So you're better off just doing what I'm doing and swap. So we'll say 1, 2, 3. But I'm going to enable fractional scaling and set it to 125%. So you can see we've still got some artifacting around the windows, but it's crisp, everything's working. And we have a functional system. There's still some artifacting and such going on. Actually, let's grab another deb package to demonstrate that one of the cool things about this, let's get some Discord. Again, something else you can install as a flat pack through the software manager. But maybe you're somebody who wants native packages and not flat packs. One of the things about the Wayland session that has drastically improved is I haven't crashed yet. I have fractional scaling enabled. Performance is still really good. My browser works pretty well. Obviously, I've got some graphical bugs and stuff going on, but, you know, it's working, which means it's time you can start testing this stuff. And you can boot into the Wayland session, do your thing. If it breaks, you just Control-Delete or log out, reboot the system, log back into the X11 session, you're fine. You get your work done. So one of the things they said they worked on was they replaced PolicyKit on the system with something that would actually allow them to put in a pseudo password, so your admin password. So before, if I clicked install, this prompt would not show up at all because the PolicyKit, the way it worked, had been deprecated. It doesn't know what Wayland is. It can't work with the Wayland protocols. This works. I can now press install, and it works just fine. I can put in my pseudo password and update the system. And it works. This is a functional system, guys. Now, there's obviously some glitching going on, some artifacting going on. I get it. There's Discord. Opening up Google Chrome on my Wayland session. Pretty cool stuff, to be frank. I can now interact with desktop icons, which is pretty sweet. And they're not, funkified or whatnot. I can, they're set to auto lock, so, but I can open as root. I get a password prompt. I've noticed this dialog box kind of just pops up all over the place. But let's say we want to change our background. We can do that now. Things are moving right along. And the nice part, so I open up like Software Store and a few other things, is Nightlight is made to work with Wayland as a functional experience. One of the things that isn't going to work right away is gestures. I think it's based because of the package that Mint used to do gestures to swipe right and left, as you can see. But it's one of those things. They'll work on it. They'll get there. They have, I believe, mostly specified that 26.04, which I believe is in 2029. I could be wrong. Or 2020. No. It's at some point in the future. I'll label it here if I remember to go look it up. But essentially, by the next Mint major release, by Mint 23, they're planning to have the Wayland session up to snuff with X11. It probably won't be the default, but it's supposed to be almost there. And as things are, it's working. I have fractional scaling. I have apps that work. And sure, I've got some artifacts and whatnot, but hey, who doesn't when you're trying to develop on a new standard, right? They're basically from the ground up molding Cinnamon to work with Wayland, so there's going to be some problems. Yeah. With that, that's my video on the subject. I'm going to go ahead and power this thing down. This is Mint 22.1. I've got a semi-functional Wayland session. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have listened to me ramble long enough. I hope you guys have a great day, and take care.